What's up, everybody? I'm obviously not on a fancy stage right now with fancy cameras recording me or fancy microphones. I'm shooting this on my iPhone. Um, I have been quarantined. I've had COVID. Today is a week total since I tested, or since I had symptoms. So luckily, nothing terrible, nothing bad. I've gotten over it. I think I should be good to go for this coming Sunday, hopefully back in Bristol. If you don't know me, my name is James. I'm the student pastor for Highlands Fellowship in our Bristol campus. And if you don't know what we're doing here, we're going through a series that goes through the New Testament of the Bible by Easter. So if this is your first time, hey, welcome to Highlands Fellowship at either our Marion or our Abingdon or maybe even Bristol location. We're so excited. Oh, also Bluefield, shout out to Bluefield. We're so excited that you guys are here with us. And we would love for you to join with us on this Bible reading plan. Today we're picking up in Luke chapter 15. And this is something that you guys will read this coming week, and we'll go through it. If you're reading the plan with us, and I would highly recommend, this week is by far one of the best weeks so far, for me at least. When I was trying to pick the message for today, this is the hardest it's been yet. So you should definitely read this week. I settled on Luke chapter 15 for a very specific reason. One, it's really easy for me to communicate to you guys. But then two, I think that all of you guys will know at least one of the stories. If you come to church for a while, you've probably heard it. But I want to kind of set up what's happening. So this is in Luke. If you don't know Luke or who wrote Luke, Luke actually did not witness these accounts or this account. There's four accounts of Jesus. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Luke was actually not one of the disciples of Jesus who were with him physically. So Luke probably didn't ever see Jesus, but what he did is he went around interviewing people about his life story. And so Luke thought it was so important, his life was so changed by it, that he heard the stories, wrote them down, made a gospel account. And so Luke is telling the story about Jesus. And what happens in this story is that there is a crowd, okay? There's tax collectors and there's sinners. What that means is like the Jewish people would be very far away from them. They did not want to be part with them. They did not want to be associated with them in any way. So they tried to separate themselves from them, especially the tax collectors. If you don't know who the tax collectors are, they worked for the Roman government, and the Roman government was persecuting Jews. They had defeated them. They had conquered them. And so they were taxing them. And so that meant if you were a Jew, you literally had to pay taxes to the person who was persecuting you. So they really did not like these tax collectors because they were the ones taking their money to literally persecute and maybe even kill their relatives and people who believed like them. So they did not like them at all. And so tax collectors and sinners are there. And then it says, verse 2 in Luke chapter 15, it says, "But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered," so they were also there, "This man welcomes sinners," talking about Jesus, "and eats with them." And Jesus must have overheard this, or he knows that they're talking about this. And Jesus goes on to tell three parables. If you don't know what a parable we talked about, if you don't know what a parable is, we talked about it last week a little bit. A parable is kind of like a story told by Jesus. It's almost like a metaphor that shows a point, like an underlying point, and it just tells a story to show it. And he tells three parables right here, and they are some of the best parables you'll probably hear about. People talk about them more than probably most of them. But he talks about three. He talks about the parable of the lost sheep, talks about the parable of the lost coin, and he talks about the parable of the lost or the prodigal son. So he tells three stories about lost things. The first one is about a sheep and a shepherd. And so he starts telling this to the crowd. And the shepherd and the sheep story is that, hey, if a shepherd has 100 sheep and one goes missing, then that shepherd goes and finds that one. And when he finds them, he rejoices. He calls around all of his friends and his neighbors, and he starts rejoicing with them. And so this is showing, that Jesus is showing God the Father how he celebrates finding the one, how he leaves the 99 to find the one. And I want to flip back because I think it's important to tie in the Old Testament, which means before Jesus, to this. And a great place we see this is in Psalm 23. Psalm 23 says this, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all of the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And so David is the one who is writing that. David in the Old Testament. A lot of you guys probably know David and Goliath. That's the author of that psalm. And David, if you know his story, knows what it means to be a shepherd. He knows, like, when he started out, he was a shepherd. When you're introduced to David, he's actually out in the fields, especially with the story of David and Goliath. But you see this guy talking about God as a shepherd, and we don't have a common view of shepherds, but it's a story of God caring about his sheep, and that's the same thing about the parable of the lost sheep. So then there's a second parable, the parable of the lost coin. This is another short one. Pretty much what happens is a woman has 10 coins. She comes home, she loses one of them, and then she cleans up like her whole house. She sweeps, she looks everywhere to find this one coin, and then when she finds it, she calls in her neighbors and her friends, just like the shepherd did in the last one, and she celebrates, saying, "Hey, I found my lost coin." And then the last one is the longest one. The third one is the parable of the lost son, or the parable of the prodigal son. And this is a very common one for people to preach about. But I hope you guys kind of see the view that I want you guys to see in this. And what happens in the parable of the lost son? I got to scroll through my notes right here. What happens in the parable of the lost son is there's a father and there's two sons that we know about. One of the sons, the younger son, tells the father, "Hey, I've had enough time here with you on your land. I want all of my inheritance, and I want to leave." And which means a lot, but we don't have time to go into that today. But the son leaves, runs away, and he blows all of his money. He spends it all far away from home. He just blows it all. I don't know if you guys know anyone who, like, money burns a hole in your pocket. I certainly do. But that's what he does. He goes away and he burns all through his money, and then all of a sudden a famine hits. And famines were a much bigger deal back then. Like today, the biggest famine I think that you guys have probably had in your life is the famine of toilet paper in 2020. I mean, we have food at grocery stores, or maybe you have a garden like I did last year, like we talked about last week. But a famine back then was a big deal. I mean, it would literally kill and starve a lot of people. And so there's a famine that hits, and this guy is out of money. This younger son's out of money. And so he finds work feeding pigs. And there's symbolism in there. In the Jewish religion, pigs are considered dirty. And if you eat a pig, really any hoofed animal, if you eat a pig, that meant religiously you were unclean. And so for this guy to be spending time with pigs, not only meant he was at the low of the low, like, hey man, you're feeding pigs slop. That's disgusting. But also, he would religiously be unclean. So he stooped all the way down to the bottom of this region, of this part of his family. And he even gets to the point where he's so hungry that he is jealous of what the pigs are eating. And that can be a lot of different stuff. That can literally mean bugs. That can mean just slop. That can mean hay. I mean, all of this different stuff. And this man gets to the point where he's so low that he's jealous of what the pigs are eating. And he thinks, hey, even my father's servants have it better than me. So he returns home, and what happens is his father sees him far away. And I need you guys to realize and remember what we talked about with the famine, is that a lot of people would die. And so the father is probably thinking his son has died. He's literally gone. But he sees him coming, and the father drops his robe and runs out to meet him and embraces him. And there's a lot of symbolism and meaning in that. But he goes out, meets him. He says, hey, welcome back. He actually throws a party for him. And those three parables all show a very specific theme. And that is the person in that, or God, celebrating when something is lost that returns home. Something that has been lost has come back. And that's exactly how God is. No matter how far away you are from Him, or no matter how far away you were from Him, that He celebrates knowing His creation. He celebrates when we come running back to Him. And it's a great story, and that's how it's usually preached about. But because we're going through this in more of like a discipleship way, I want to show you guys the end meaning of the last kind of paragraph. And I'm going to read it word for word. I'm going to tell you guys who it's to, and why Jesus said it, because it's different than what's going on in the rest of these. So if you have missed everything, it's time to come back to me right now. This is what I want you guys to see today. So we're going to pick up in Luke 15, verse 28. It talks about the older brother, the one who stayed on the farm or stayed on wherever they were, and he kept working. He kept with the father. It says this: the older brother became angry and refused to go in to the party where they were celebrating the younger brother coming home. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all of these years I've been slaving for you, and you never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me a younger goat so that I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you killed a fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate him and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." This older brother is mad. He's upset, saying, "Hey, I never left you. I've been with you this whole time, but you've never done this for me. You never thrown a party for me." And the father responds to him and says, "Hey, well, you everything I have is yours. You already have everything. Like, if you don't think you have anything, then you're missing the point. Then you don't see what you already have." And Jesus ends these three parables this way, I believe, in a very specific tone, with a very specific point towards the Pharisees. Because if you remember at the very beginning of all this, the reason why Jesus even starts talking about this is the Pharisees were muttering, and the teachers of the law. If you don't know what a Pharisee is, it means like a religious leader. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees were like muttering underneath their breath, talking about, who is he? Why does he eat with these sinners and tax collectors? And he ends this story in this very specific way, saying, "Hey, you already have everything. Like, you can come to God, you can speak with him, you can have all this stuff, but God's going to celebrate the ones who are lost and coming back." And I think he's showing the Pharisees a very specific point right here. Is he's kind of showing them and reminding them, hey, don't forget who your God is. Don't forget he celebrates lost coming back, because these guys were very moralistic, very, if you're not good enough, then God doesn't care about you. And they were kind of lost in their religion. They were kind of lost and blinded by keeping a certain set of standards and stuff like that. And Jesus is telling them with this story, hey, you're like the older brother. Like, yeah, you know God. You have him. But God is going to celebrate the people coming back to him. And it's easy to get so lost in, like, once you know God, being right, following his commands, doing stuff like that you get blinded like the older son. He had all of those things. I mean, literally all of the rest of the inheritance. If there were no more sons, and we don't know there's there anymore, so we can assume that there's no more. That means literally all of the property was the older son's. Like, when that father is going to pass away, everything is going to be his. And he's so concerned about someone else coming home and there being a party for him that he loses sight of that. And I think it's easy for us to do as Christians, to lose sight of what we have, and then also to lose sight of telling others about it. Because, like, I love that he tells a story about how the people in the story celebrate when something that was lost comes home. Not only the person, not only the father, not only God, not only the shepherd, not only the woman celebrates, but they go out and they get their friends and their family and they celebrate with them. Hey, it's a great and glorious thing when we can celebrate people coming to know God. If you don't know God tonight, please talk to one of us. Message us on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're at a campus, talk to someone there. Say, hey, how do I start this relationship with God? I do desperately want you to know that God is running after you, and he is seeking you, and he loves you so much. No matter how far away from him you are, he wants to have a relationship with you. But also for those of us who do know God, don't forget about that joy. Don't forget about telling other people. Don't forget that one day, like, we were just like everybody else, that we were so far away from God that we desperately needed him. So I'm going to pray for us, and then I'll log off here. God, thank you so much for loving us. Thank you for today. Thank you for time we get to spend in your word. God, I pray that people will just go through this week, God, just desperately chasing you, reading your word, spending time with you, serving others around them. God, thank you so much. God, please remind us of your mercy and of your joy, like the people celebrating when other people come home. Lord, thank you, and we love you. Amen. Hey, again, if you guys have any questions about anything, just let one of us know. If you want to get baptized, tell somebody. We would love to talk to you guys all about it. But thank you guys. You guys will read this week. It's 3 incredible, really, I mean, the whole week is awesome. Like I said earlier, I really struggled trying to figure out what to talk about today. Hope you guys enjoyed this. This is our yellow room, by the way. I guess I didn't say that at the beginning. Whoops. This is our yellow room, I guess you can see. But I'll see y'all next week. Hope it's going great, and signing off.